Filip Gustavsson noted after the game that the Minnesota Wild didn't show up. Gee, thanks for stating the obvious. Folks, we have to confront the reality that the Wild's postseason chances are dead. And honestly, we have seen the signs all season. And so we'll go through and look at what has led to the Minnesota Wilds just continuing to do the same thing in these very must-have games. A 6-1 loss for the Wild tonight against the Nashville Predators. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is officially ready to begin. The doctor will see you now.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild fall 6-1 to the Nashville Predators tonight. They're 8 points out of the second playoff spot and about to be 8 points out of both playoff spots. And with 21 games to go, ladies and gentlemen, it's too big a mountain. It's too big a mountain considering what we know about what has transpired this season. But I want to hit you with a number to start tonight. And I appreciate everybody joining us late. I was on double duty tonight, had an hour commute, had a high school basketball doubleheader. And so long day and a weird day considering, and I got to own some of this too, considering that today's March schedule preview completely overlooked tonight's game against the Predators. If you don't win tonight's game, the March calendar means nothing. And so that's on me. That's my contribution to what happens today, but I'll own that. I won't cite the fact that Locked On Wild didn't show up. I won't cite the fact that Locked On Wild has to take it a game at a time because we're not pushing for the playoffs. I mean, honestly, like, here's the key stat for this Wild team that has tried to tell us all season that they are a playoff hopeful. The Minnesota Wilds are 2-9 against playoff teams in the Central. That includes the Nashville Predators. That includes the Colorado Avalanche, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Dallas Stars. And even to make it so that it's not 1-9, I threw St. Louis in there because they're still fighting for a spot. And those two wins were John Hines' first two games against the Central Division. The Wild have lost 9 straight games against the divisional opponents. That's not right. They've lost 9 games this year against the likes of Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas, Nashville. You got 1 win against Nashville. You beat St. Louis. But other than that, you have not really even come close to beating the likes of the teams that are in front of you. And the more frustrating part, I think, about it is the fact that what Filip Gustavsson said after the game, that the team didn't show up. They didn't show up. And the way that you continue to, that is a fairly common theme this season in and of itself, is the team saying after games, we didn't show up. And so I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you because it's been pointed out to me that you have an easy schedule down the stretch. Guess who has a slightly less easy schedule down the stretch? Nashville, St. Louis. And so I just the number of times that these types of really got to have to must win games, and it's not even losing a tight game. If you lose 3-2, that's one thing, but to get run over, and I guess I will give credit to the fact that the Wilds, at least in instances of Nashville trying to kind of big brother them, that they didn't run from that. So that is one thing, but power play opportunities without a single shot on goal. Goalies giving up soft goals. And by and large, just really not looking again like there is a sense of the moment is just it's just not. And I want to set something perfectly clear here because I'm seeing this again in the comments tonight, and honestly, it's getting annoying. I don't revel in this. I don't revel in this team continuing to go in situations like this and lose these games. I don't revel in I don't celebrate this team losing. We see it's right in front of us. We see all these signs of these benchmarks that teams should be able to clear if you're going to get into the playoff picture. And they just continue to not be able to get past them. I don't know what to tell you, folks, because you've got the people on one side of the coin that continue to say, there were still people tonight on Twitter saying the schedule sets up for the Wild to make a run. We have had so many instances this season in which you can start a sentence with, if the Wild could just, and you can fill it in with whatever you want after that. And it's never happened. They've had stretches in which they have been able to win games. They have had stretches in which they've been able to get quality wins against Vegas, against Edmonton. But there just is not any. There just is. The Central teams are the ones that matter. The Central Division games are the ones that matter. Don't give me the, hey, we beat Chicago. Like, get that. Those games don't matter. Those games are 2 points, but Chicago's not a serious team that you're chasing. Arizona is out. Guess what? You lost to Arizona. And you can't even say you've got the Ducks and you've got the Sharks, and those are automatic gimme points. Because guess what? You lost to the Ducks before the All-Star break. And so we continue to, if the Wild could just, and there just has not been any answer to that sentence. And so I'm not going to fault anybody that wants to see this team get to the postseason. If you are still believing that this team is able to get it done, all the power to you. But as host of this show, I'm not going to lie to this audience. I'm not going to lie to this audience if I don't think it's feasible for this team to do. And guess what? It's not just me. Go listen to Jesse Pierce. Go listen to Judd Zulgad. Go read what Michael Russo writes on a nightly basis. It's not just me saying, hey, this is going to be a monumental hill to climb. It's everybody. So I don't even really Like, what do you pull from the game? What do you pull from this game? Jake Middleton's fight was awesome. That was awesome. So that was a great play during this game. Connor Dewar scoring to get it started was great. It's not that they lost. If you lose this game 3-2, I'm not standing on a high horse here. But I don't get it. I don't get it. So we're not going to dwell on this game. What I'd like to talk about is some of the things coming up, because there's a lot of chatter about Marat Huznadinov in the chat. I want to talk about that because something happens today with Huznadinov that really excited me, in addition to just him signing. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a pretty solid effort for Marco Rossi. And I just kind of want to get everybody's sense of where they're at. And if there are people in here, and there are, that think there's still a chance for the postseason, you gotta sell me. You gotta sell me on that, because we've watched it all season, folks, and there just have been way too many teases, way too many instances of being tantalized by on-ice results, only to get the rug pulled out from under us. And we continue to see the same things from particular players that just continue to get upper level ice time. So Wild lose tonight 6-1. We'll take your comments when we come back. We'll take a look at what this means going forward. We'll maybe talk a little bit about the trade deadline strategy and St. Louis Blues. Maybe we'll have a ton of fights against St. Louis on Saturday. That'd be something. So we'll continue. We're just getting started on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. We will continue with recap of tonight's game, as well as going forward as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. And with the weather continuing to be on the warm side, we're going to get through the spring here pretty soon, which means that summer concert season and Minnesota Twins baseball is just around the corner, which gives you an opportunity to snag some great deals on tickets the day of with Game Time. How many of you have ever gone through a situation in which you tried to buy tickets for an event, you got blindsided by fees, or found that your seat view was obstructed when you got to the arena? Game Time's here to help erase all of that same-day ticket buying stress. They offer you last-minute ticket deals, plus views from every seat in the arena. And they also show you the fees that you'll pay right out in front, so you don't get hit with those hidden fees when you hit the checkout line. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by Sleeper. And with us pushing through the final 2 months of the season, there's still time for you to win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether players like Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, or Nathan McKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, or more in a given game. You can set your lineup in under 60 seconds. And if you're a fan of other sports, you can play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Minnesota Wild fall tonight by a score of 6-1, and we have a real active comment section here this evening. So keep them coming, because I don't have anything in particular that I have to do early in the morning. So we'll keep this one going here tonight. We get a lot of consensus from this one right to start. Painful to watch, very painful. I was expecting a better all-around effort tonight. Diane hitting us with a little bit of positivity to start. At least we didn't have to watch a shootout. But that's the thing, like, if this isn't a must-win game, I don't know what is. And you come out and you get the lead, and in the span of 8 seconds, it's gone. And whether it be soft goals, turnovers, or just general lax play with the puck, Nashville took advantage of the opportunity, and they grabbed the 2-1 lead. And after that, they sensed blood in the water. And so they just continued to push, and credit to that Nashville team. That's now 7 games in a row. They have been in a similar spot to the Minnesota Wild at points this season, where earlier in the year, they were pretty well written off. I've done shows with the Locked On Predators hosts who have a same reaction to the season they're having as I'm having to this one. But they continue to find ways to win games. And let's just look at the benchmarks to start. If you are going to beat playoff caliber teams, you've got to have good goaltending to start. I'm not going to hang the whole thing on Filip Gustavsson, but it was not one of his better efforts in this game tonight. UC Saros, 34 out of 35. He made some real good saves at particular points throughout this game. But more importantly, once the Wild scored to make it 1-0, he held the Wild at bay to allow Nashville the opportunity to tie it up and take the lead. This has been a hanging cloud for this Minnesota Wild team for a large majority of the season. And if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. There's been a large amount of games that I've watched in which the Wild take an early 1-0 lead, and based off of reaction to particular shots, kind of feels like they got to win those games 1-0 because goalies aren't, seeing the puck particularly well. A couple of weird saves. Opportunity just waiting like just Mount Vesuvius waiting to erupt. This felt like that for a good majority of the season. Full credit to Filip Gustavsson and Marc-Andre Fleury. They've had some fantastic games this season, but just look at UC Saros' numbers this year. He's like 20. He was 24 and 21, I think, coming into this game. A guy who has built up a pedigree as a pretty darn good goalie in the NHL. But as we've seen with goaltending throughout the league this year, it's been volatile. But Saros was able to dig deep and do what he needed to do to keep the Wild off the board in this one. And it just felt like there was more and more pressure. Every goal the Wild gave up just mounted as the game went on. Another thing that playoff teams do is they get contributions up and down the lineup. Here are the players that scored for Nashville tonight: Filip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Cole Smith, Yakov Trenin, Roman Josi, and Ryan McDonough, all scoring goals. You get some of your top level guys like the Wild have, Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson Ek. Like, those guys have been carrying the weight of this team for a long time. But then you get the other contributors throughout the lineup to help push you to a victory too. The fourth line has been carrying their weight over the last few games, but lines 2 and 3 have been very much works in progress, and that continued into tonight. You get another game from Marcus Johansson in which he is able to get you a one shot in 14 minutes, 16 seconds. John Hines continues to go to bat for Marcus Johansson. He continues to go to bat for Freddie Gaudreau. But bottom line is, if those guys are going to be playing higher in the lineup, it just seems like you need a little more from particular players throughout this one tonight. And Matt Zuccarello has, by and large, been good this season. Rough one for him tonight, too. A lot of frustration. I know he got involved in multiple skirmishes, but that line of Rossi, Zuccarello, and Johansson got picked on in this one tonight. And, you know, special teams. The Wilds, their first 2 power plays, no shots on goal. Nashville, first shot they get on their first power play, score. Like, again, we talked about this after the Carolina game. I said nothing had changed after the Carolina game. But that's because Carolina's an Eastern Conference team. Michael Russo after the game said that it was a tough blow to their playoff chances. I said it was a good opportunity to see what other teams were going to do to you down the stretch, and if you get there, in the postseason. Because if you have only one line that's contributing, other teams will throw everything they have at that top line and say, we're just going to make everybody else beat you. Hopefully that will convince General Manager Bill Guerin to not sell the farm. Hoping that will mean that the Marat Kuznetsov rocket will get plenty of ice time once he arrives. That was an interesting soundbite from Bill Guerin, that he wanted to get Marat here and get him into the lineup, because I think Bill Guerin understands that situation, that burning a year of a guy's entry-level contract and then having him sit on the bench is not a smart move. So I think Bill Guerin gets that. And, you know, the thing that super encouraged me today, that I think it was Joe Smith mentioned this on Twitter, that Kuznetsov texted the transition team, I think it's called, for the Minnesota Wild, to try to get some literature from the team so that he can start working on the process of getting himself acclimated into this environment. And this was a good point that was brought up. I think it was in last night's episode. The Wild have a team like a group of coaches within the organization whose sole purpose is to help players from overseas, from Iowa, get acclimated to life at the NHL level. And so there is a transition team in-house to help Kuznetsov when he gets here, get acclimated, get to where he needs to go, get familiar with what is going on throughout the organization. The fact that even with his work visa not approved yet, he's already trying to speed up the process is another reason to be excited about him getting here. So everybody that is getting excited, like, you should be, because we've heard about these prospects for the last year plus, that these guys are getting close. They're going to be here before we know it, and they're going to be able to help kind of usher in this new era of Minnesota Wild hockey. We will get an opportunity to see, hopefully soon, a piece of that. And as the roller coaster continues, that is an exciting part of what lies ahead for the rest of this season. And so I'm super excited. I'm beyond excited for Marat to get here so that we can just see where he's at right now. See how he acclimates. See how he adjusts to life at the NHL. See how he adjusts to the push and shove of the NHL game. Because he is somebody who I think will surprise a few people, but more so, I think he is somebody that's up for the challenge. So that's going to be a huge piece to how the rest of this season goes, is just getting that tantalizing look at where he's at and kind of where he goes from here. Predators are bigger, faster, and more skilled. The Wild just don't have the roster to compete. And look, we knew coming into this season that it was going to be tough with the cap restrictions that the Wild are under, with the fact that, you know, we saw, I think, that we're kind of in between with the organizational depth chart, in that the instances in which we had injuries at the NHL level, there were a few guys in Iowa that were able to step up and help. But, you know, you take a couple of key pieces out of the top of this lineup, and it's hard for them to. And look, I wasn't expecting Stanley Cup this year or next. But I think everybody that is on the side of like, we're just getting exhausted by this is a playoff team. This is a playoff team. This is a playoff team. I think what happens against the rest of the Central Division, I think, is a good indicator of why is those teams, the Colorados, the Dallases, the Winnipegs, even the Nashvilles, they're just a step above. The Wild are hoping to get to that point, but they're not going to be able to get to that point until Zach Parise and Ryan Suter stop haunting this team. And so what you can do in between is to just see what some of these other pieces look like, to where maybe you get somebody that hits. Maybe Marat goes nuts and you say, hey, we've got a guy on an entry-level contract that we can plug into a spot that can definitely be an impact player. This is the thing with the NFL, where you get a rookie quarterback and you can build the rest of the roster around them because they're on a cheap deal. And if they play really well, you can surround them with just a ton of other weapons. It's just, It's just, I don't even know. Honestly, at this point, we should try to trade Gus and just get the wall up here to get him trained on net. If we're going to lose this bad anyway, might as well get him some experience. Who's taking Filip Gustavsson at this point? Like, you got a guy who is signed to next year and the year beyond, who has shown flashes of really, really good play, but has by and large been as inconsistent as the team has. Let's just go a little bit behind the Filip Gustavsson numbers here. He has, in the month of February alone, he's had 5 different games of 3 or more goals. In January, 6 games of 3 or more goals, including 7 against Tampa Bay and 5 against the Arizona Coyotes in 26 minutes of time on ice. He also gave up 5 against Vancouver in 39 minutes. And in December, he had 4 straight. So actually, he went 7 games in a row with 3 or more goals. You want to know how many times he did that all of last season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 total last season. And down the stretch, he was one of the best goalies in the NHL, but he's just not at that level right now. And if I'm an opposing general manager, yes, he's young, but I don't know if I am shelling out significant assets for a guy who he's been streaky, but who hasn't? Get in line. There are just large swaths of this team that have been. So at this point, I think I'm not going to give him away for nothing. And to be honest, as much as we want to see Jesper, do you really want to see him get shelled on a nightly basis? Yes, it would probably test his mettle and give him an opportunity to key in on areas that he needs to improve, but we got to keep in mind too that Wallstedt is still very, very young. At this point, I would just much rather just finish the year off and reassess, as opposed to then adding Jesper into this with a team that has players who, by and large, kind of coast in and out through various parts of the season. So I don't know. Yeah, this was another thing. The Wild were completely out of gas by the third period. It just, like, I don't need to point to all these different things, because they're just out there in front. They're just out there in front of us. This is the single reason that I am irrationally excited for Saturday's game. Is I would love to see a goalie fight or a goalie goal. those are two things that I'm looking forward to for Saturday's game. All right, Hoptics, I see you in here. Remember how after January, everyone was reacting like the season was over, and then we went on an absolute heater? Isn't it possible for that to happen again? See, here's the problem with that. You are now a month further into the season. February's done. It is officially now March. You have 21 games remaining. You have one of the easier schedules in the NHL. St. Louis and Nashville have easy schedules too. And unless you can beat Nashville and St. Louis, if you can't beat those teams head to head, which the Wilds, I mean, look at the results tonight. Think about the last time Nashville and the Wilds hooked up. It was a 1-0 game for the Wilds. 1-0 game the Wild led heading into the third period. Nashville scores 2 goals in like 30 seconds, and that's the game. And they win that one too. You just, like, if you play a particular stretch of hockey here down these last 21 games, the two teams that you are chasing have to play substantially worse than that. That's the part of this, is that you have to hope that these teams in front of you play substantially worse than you do to be able to make up these points. You can't go in tied, because as of right now, you have fewer wins than St. Louis, Calgary, Los Angeles, and Nashville. So you need more points than them or you're out. And to be fair, we have heard like 10 different times this season, the urgency's got to be there. We gotta start figuring it out. We can't hang our heads. We can't feel sorry for ourselves. We got to start putting wins together. That stretch in the month of January, February, you beat Chicago, you beat Pittsburgh, you beat Vegas. Vegas was a good win. And not that these others aren't good wins, but Vegas was like a statement quality win. I'll grant you that. And then you beat Arizona at the point in which Arizona was struggling, but they were still in it. And they've fallen completely out since. But then you have the game against the Buffalo Sabres, where you have a 2-1 lead with a minute to play. And you lose that game in overtime. You have to find a way to close that game out. How about losing to Anaheim 3-2 before the All-Star break even started? Losing to Philadelphia in a game that you had a 3-2 lead in the third period, and Philadelphia scores 2 straight goals to tie the score and then to win in overtime. How about, I mean, I could go on and on and on. At the point in the season in which every point matters, you have squandered far too many. So again, I'm not rooting for this team to lose. I don't enjoy ripping players, despite how it may sound on this show. I don't take pleasure in that. A lot of these guys, every guy on this team, every single player on this team is beyond an A+ person off the ice, and even an A+ person on the ice. I don't root for this. But when you have games like tonight, in which it is a show me game, and you got players after the game saying, we didn't show up tonight, it doesn't get any, I can't put it into any further words than that. Like, it's just the biggest game of the season. And you can't have a situation in which after the game you say, we didn't show up. If you show up and you battle with everything that you have, different result. It's too easy to shut down a team with only one line that is a scoring threat, and I think that's the biggest issue. We need to try any and every combo to get at least have a second line that can score. This is absolutely spot on. But, Hoptics, let's talk about this. The fact that we continue to see Marcus Johansson play second line minutes. And so, yes, the Wild do need to try to figure out a combination that gives them a reliable second line. And I think they're close. Matt Zuccarello is not going to be somebody you take out of your top six. And like I said, Zuccarello has been by and large good this season. And with the battle level that Marco Rossi brings, he's a young player. He's trying hard out there. The quote of the year by Marco Rossi: every day I go out there and try to do my best. That plays on the second line. But Marcus Johansson is just so categorically not it. Beyond not it. And yet, every game, we continue to see him out there. We've seen every possibility of centers on that second line. We've seen Marcus Johansson outside the top six, I think, for 2 total games in which he played on the third line. And then after that, right back up. And so, this comment kind of got my gears going the other day in a good way, in a critical thinking way, is that we can hope for and ask for these things. Different winger on that second line, but we just don't see it. And honestly, I'm to the point too, and maybe this is just me being tinfoil hat. I'm to the point too where I don't think John Hines is making that call. I don't think John Hines is making the call to keep Marcus Johansson in the top six. I think that call is coming from up above him. Same thing with Freddie Gaudreau. Although, to Hines' credit, he has never, with the exception of against the Carolina Hurricanes for 2 periods, he has not put Freddie Gaudreau in the top 6. That's another thing. And again, this is probably me just being tinfoil hat at this point in the season. That's another call I don't think came from John Hines. I must confess, I watched Moneyball recently, and it got me on that same line of thinking in which Brad Pitt as Billy Beane goes up to Philip Seymour Hoffman as Art Howe, the manager for the Oakland Athletics, and he tells him, I want Hatteberg starting at first base. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, in his brilliance, just kind of side eyes and says, Hatteberg's not a first baseman. Carlos Pena, the young prospect, is not only the best first baseman on the roster, but he is a first baseman. And Billy Beane says, no. Start Hatteberg. And guess what happens? Art Howe starts Carlos Pena. Billy Beane does not like that one bit. And so guess what he does? He trades Carlos Pena. And he says to Art Howe, he says, I could do this all day. Start Hatteberg. And so I'd like to believe that that's not going on, but I also don't think John Hines is an idiot. John Hines is a smart guy. I like a lot of what John Hines has done this year. I think the in-game adjusting that he has done far and away outpaces what Dean Evison did on his watch. And so for that, I give John Hines a lot of credit. I give him a lot of credit for realizing that Brock Faber is a weapon defensively that needs to be used a lot more. I give him credit for putting Declan Chisholm in the top 4. I know it was a rough game for Chisholm tonight, but I don't have another explanation for why Marcus Johansson continues to get time in the top 6 and why Freddie Gaudreau continues to play, other than that those are not John Hines calls. I don't like to go conspiracy theory on this show, but I can't rule it out. I cannot rule it out. And I don't know. I feel like I'm going crazy here, but I talked myself into it. Pat joining us tonight. We've got some new faces in tonight's show that absolutely brings a smile to my face. Anybody who is joining here tonight for the first time, welcome you in. As you're seeing tonight in these postcasts, we like to get the listeners involved. We got a lot of comments here tonight, and so I'm trying to get to as many as I can, while also kind of elaborating on different things as the opportunity arises. And this is another good one from Pat. The owner, Craig Leopold, needs to realize they aren't 1 to 2 vets who are affordable away. They have great prospects, and they need to put themselves in a position to use those players in 2 years, which is why I hope that we've gotten to the point where, and look, Zach is a good friend of mine and is a good contributor to this show. He runs in the vein of positivity with this team, and I don't fault him for that. But I hope that we also have been swayed from buying at the deadline, because this roster just has too much confusion around it to throw another piece in without moving 1 to 2 players off the roster. And if you're given the opportunity to grabbing a veteran or giving Murat Huznadinov a legitimate shot, I would just much rather go that way. Because guess what? We didn't really know what to expect from Declan Chisholm, and save tonight, kind of an uneven game for Chisholm. I thought he's looked good with the Wild since they got him. And that looks like a move that is going to work out better than we had hoped for Bill Guerin. So full credit to Guerin for Declan Chisholm. But I also think that was a move that wasn't planned. When Winnipeg decided they were going to keep Logan Stanley, the baby giraffe on skates, over Declan Chisholm, I don't think that was something that the Wild had planned for. They took advantage, and so there needs to be credit given, but I feel like a lot of what we've seen with this team has been stuff that has been planned, and if we do this, then we do this. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, kind of how I see things at this current point. This is an interesting one too, because I saw this on Twitter and I did get to the point. Where, see, and now I'm trying to kind of do 2 things at once and try to catch up with the comments while also trying to I just completely froze. I'm sorry. I saw this on Twitter, and I hope I, made it sound like I was giving John Hines a stamp of approval. If the calls from up above are not his on particular points, I mean, again, I like what we've seen from him in game. I think he's made a lot of good tactical adjustments. I think the team has by and large responded to what he is doing. Not a ton of change in his style compared to Dean Evison, but at the same time, I feel like there are some notable differences. It's just so much of what Bill Guerin put together with this current roster was unnecessary. He brought Brock Faber in for Kevin Fiala, which has worked out tremendously well, but we're starting to see some signs that Brock Faber's getting worn into the ground. His defensive metrics, along with Jake Middleton over the last 10 or 12 games, not great. And so we're starting to see signs that maybe Brock Faber is starting to tire out a little bit, or teams are just continuing to keep the fight directly at him. You didn't need to rush into signing Freddie Gaudreau to a 5-year deal. That was Guerin's choice. You didn't need to rush into Matt Zuccarello, Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman extensions. That was Bill Guerin's choice. It felt like if this season didn't go according to plan, which the plan is to make the playoffs, if this season didn't go according to plan, there was a logical point with next year being in the exact same cap situation. There was a logical point to just reassess, reevaluate where you're at. But now, with trade protection and with guys just flat out not performing well, this is going to by and large be the same roster next year. And, maybe it's not a team that is going to be expected to do anything major in the postseason. So maybe if this continues and everybody gets a year older, the results will be slightly worse, which will mean a little higher draft pick. But it also felt like, and this is clearly why I'm not a general manager, it felt like an opportunity to just use these next 2 years to evaluate some young guys and see who you got that you can stick around with. Now, they've done that this year. Faber looks like a legit defenseman. Faber looks like a good defenseman that you can build around. Okay, you got that. Marco Rossi looks like a good contributor. That was a box checked this year. And, if the rest of the season down the stretch, you could put Declan Chisholm in that same box. So it's not to say that there hasn't been youth development at all. I think we're hoping that you were going to be able to add different pieces into some of these roster spots to where now it's like, well, geez, Freddie Gaudreau has a 15-team no-trade clause, but he's also not performing well. So you couldn't trade him to one of the other teams if you even wanted to. Marcus Johansson is a full no move. He's not performing particularly well. Matt Zuccarello has trade protection. Marcus Foligno has trade protection. Ryan Hartman has trade protection. Alex Goligoski comes off the books, and honestly, I wish him well if he continues to play in the NHL or if he hangs it up. He has had some fun moments since he's been here. He was maybe put into an unfair situation with his playing time and with what he was asked to do at this stage in his career, but that roster spot should go to someone else. John Merrill, same way. It's nothing against the players. It's just we've seen this play out on a nightly basis throughout the course of the season. We're into game 50. I don't even. Well, if it's 21 games left, it's 61 games played. So we're into game 61 of the season. And these little paper cuts continue to happen. Do you think Gustavsson having a brand new baby is affecting his sleep and ability to recover? He's so up and down, one bad game's followed by a good game, and it seems like that has been the pattern lately. This is a great point by Hoptics. I think this is playing a role for sure. I also think with Gustafsson's first full season in the NHL last year, I think teams got a little bit of a book on him. And it's hard to try to make those adjustments during the season because so much of what's done in sport is muscle memory. And so if you have particular habits or things that teams are able to exploit, a lot of times you can it's like with my golf swing. I can go to the range for 2 hours and try a couple of new things and go play around the next day. If things are going well, it's easy to stick to it. But if things are not going well, you revert back to whatever you were doing before to try to kind of fight your way through it. And so I think that's a big part of it too. But do not discount this, because everything that I've heard from any of my friends that are parents, especially new parents, you may as well just throw your sleep schedule completely out completely out the window. The Minnesota Wild were a step slow all night. Once again, the captain is correct. But, it's all I'm saying is that anything is possible. It's not like we have lost 5 in a row, which is usually when I start thinking things are hopeless. I get that, Hoptics, and I'm not picking on you, Hoptics, by any means. You are the most consistent voice that represents the other side of the coin. So I'm using you as I'm using this as a good opportunity for a little banter back and forth, because solo, I don't get the chance to do that all the time. There just is no margin for error at this point in the season, because what happens if you let's just look at this. I'll play this out. I will take a look at what is coming up, and I'm going to just take the schedules for every team that is in this. The problem, though, is that now Calgary and Seattle are both in front of your Minnesota Wild. And so here's what's coming up. So the Wild play St. Louis on Saturday. Have to beat the Blues. Nashville plays Colorado. So if Nashville loses, you're still 8 points back. But unless you beat the Blues, you are then you're 10 games back at that point, or technically 8, I guess. But St. Louis, too. St. Louis, I guess, has lost 5 out of 6. Hoptics, you go right ahead and continue to hold the faith. Hold the line. Hold the line for the it's not over. Somebody has to do it. It's just not going to be me. It's not going to be me. Let's just get caught up with some other comments here. Denny wondering where Mason Shaw, Damon Hunt, and Adam Beckman are currently. Well, I can tell you where 2 of those guys are. Damon Hunt and Adam Beckman are in Iowa. And Mason Shaw is on the bench. And look, again, I'll go back to it. I don't think John Hines is making the call on the 2 spots in which Mason Shaw could draw into the lineup. I think that call is coming from above him, because I think you could have made the case I think you could have made the case a long time ago. I mean, Freddie Gaudreau. We talked about it, and it's not just the points. There are other keys to winning games. There are other things that you can do to impact the game. Freddie Gaudreau has 2 points in his last 24 games and is averaging about a shot per game in that span. And he's just not being utilized in really any critical situation. He does play penalty kill, but Joel Eriksson Ek has taken 800 more faceoffs this season than Freddie Gaudreau has. And so Freddie Gaudreau leading the team in faceoff winning percentage at 51.3. It's in 400 attempts this season. Joel Eriksson Ek has taken 1,200 faceoffs this year. You know what that tells me? If the Wild need a key faceoff, they go to Joel Eriksson Ek. If the Wild need to win a faceoff in the defensive zone, they go to Joel Eriksson Ek. If the Wild need to win a faceoff on the power play, they go to Joel Eriksson Ek. That extension was signed because Dean Evason liked Freddie and utilized him in situations he probably wasn't suited for. But now the fact that that extension has been signed, you got to make sure that that guy is performing well. And the only way to do so, like, just imagine the optics. If you have a guy who's signed to a 5-year extension sitting in the press box, that doesn't reflect well in the GM. And so you continue to keep that guy in the lineup with the hopes that he shows you something to where you can say, see, we know what we were doing when we signed him to that 5-year extension with a 15-team no trade. And anytime I bring this up, people will say, well, who are you going to find that's better for $2.1 million a season? $2.1 million is not the issue. I am well aware that contracts are going to continue to rise in AAV as the salary cap rises. I'm well aware of that. $2.1 million is not a problem. The problem is 5 years and half the league trade protection. And that has been an MO of Bill Guerin since he got here, is if players want to stay, he does everything in his power to ensure that they can't be moved, which then boxes you into a corner and allows you limited flexibility to be able to do particular things. Wonder what's got Faber and Middleton's performance dropping recently. Maybe high TOI minutes plus fatigue from the onslaught they have to face every game. That does not help in those situations. And we talk about it too. This is Brock Faber's first full season in the NHL. And you go from the college game, in which is about a 40-game season, no time in the AHL, just hopped straight up to the NHL. 82 games to grind. You're playing against the best players in the world on a nightly basis. And Faber has, as a 21-year-old, he has played more top pairing minutes this season than I think anyone had anticipated that he would. He's done well. And so I'm not going to let this recent stretch of not playing like he did at the start of the season, I'm not going to let that detour me from the fact that he is going to be a really, really good defenseman. Seasons get long. It's a grind, especially if you're playing 25 to 30 minutes a night. It's going to catch up with you at some point. And so, this is, we're down to the final 20. Final 21. This is just the price of doing business. This is just the price of doing business when playoffs or bust is your mantra for every single season. Is you get to the stretch run and it's win at all costs. And so, this is going to factor in minimally to my assessment of Faber at the end of the season. But it's like the numbers don't lie. Brett Marshall tweeted out that I think Faber has been on the ice for a goal against in 12 straight games. It's not all Brock's fault. And look, flip side of the coin, Brock Faber is extremely accountable for, even on nights that he plays well, if there's one single thing that tilts things in the favor of the opponent, Brock Faber will stand at the microphone for 6 hours and answer every single reporter's question about what went wrong and how he needs to be better in every situation. As a 21-year-old, the kid is wise beyond his years and is going to be a real solid player for this team. It's just, it's a long season. I'd honestly like to see Hartman as a winger on the second line. At least I would think he would shoot and give Rossi the opportunity to clean up the rebounds. I would be perfectly fine with if we're not going to see Adam Beckman called up and given a chance, or I know Sammy Walker's season has been inconsistent. If we're not going to see somebody called up to fill a roster spot or Mason Shaw put into the lineup, I think Hartman is the best choice because he shoots the puck. Him and Zuccarello have worked together before. It just feels like you need a shooter to take advantage of the playmaking, to take advantage of Marco Rossi getting to the net and Matt Zuccarello's playmaking ability. Just feels like a logical fit that somebody who shoots the puck would work well on that line. But again, I think that call is coming from up above. I'm just getting to this. This is probably the comment of the night. Back to my Moneyball discussion. Denny mentioning that the Twins beat the Moneyball A's. Yeah, we all know how that played out. Yikes. Fan line canceled tonight? Oh, yeah, there wasn't a ton of live reaction after this one, which is why I think we have seen some new faces, and glad to have everybody in here that is in here tonight. We try to do these after as many games as we possibly can. I know the grind. I'm working an additional full-time job in addition to doing this as full-time as I can. So I know the grind. I was on the other call tonight and still wanted to get here to talk things through because it really is just, it's a therapy session for everybody that saw what happened here tonight, and everybody, no matter where you're at with this season, whether you are continuing to hold out hope for a postseason push, or if you are on the other side of the coin, we welcome you in. We'll have back and forth. That's just how Locked On Wild postcasts. That's how things go. We allow all comers in here. We don't have any bouncers at the door checking to see whether you are for or against getting to the postseason here. And I don't think it's that anybody is against it. Like, I think people are just realistic with where this team is at and just not wanting to see time and time again what we have seen play out this season in any of these games that you consider like critical must wins. Just by and large, they've all been large losses. If I'm honest, this is exactly where I saw this team being at the beginning of the season. Just get caught up in the delusion that this team can get to the playoffs. And look, after the Seattle game, we came on the air. Alex and I came on the air on Monday, and we said, "Hey, they're right in this. You got a top line that can contend with any of the others out there in the Central. It gives you a legitimate chance to win games. You just got to figure out that second line scoring, and you gotta pick up points in these games." And what we were afraid we would see has happened, is that Carolina and Nashville have both they've both been able to shut that or keep that top line out of the score sheet. And the Wild haven't had others be able to step in and handle the scoring. So John Merrill stole my Amazon package. On the exciting note, folks, I made some substantial additions to the Locked On Wild HQ that should all fully be here by next Wednesday. I'll throw a photo of the newly constructed Locked On Wilds base camp when everything is all put together, but I'm excited because there'll be some fun additions to what we are continuing to do for you. It's going to allow me to be a little more caught up with the comments for postcasts, just some fun things. I'll show you the photo when we get everything ironed up. Make sure to check out Denny's Beyond the Pond appearance on Saturday. Denny gets a regular appearance on KFan to discuss, as he puts it, the Minnesota mess on Saturdays. So make sure to tune in for that. I think that there's a lot here tonight that will carry over into Saturday's show. So very excited for that. Why did we recruit so many prospects and not even use them? How many prospect defenders do you have, and where are they? Hines sees that there are problems on defense and does not want to solve them. This again speaks to just the level of, like, we continue to see the same things. We just continue to see the same players given opportunities, and they just really don't do anything with them. It ain't over till it's over. Still a quarter of the season to make up 8 points. I understand it have definitely felt like it's over, but it's just a little too soon to have that mindset. Are we getting to the point where Kalen Addison is a multi-game scratch for the San Jose Sharks? We'll see on Sunday. We'll see on Sunday against San Jose. It will be interesting to see. And I got a little intel from JD of Locked On Sharks. Unfortunately, folks, we are not getting the reunion on Sunday. Kaapo Kähkönen will not be starting in net. Unfortunately, I was legitimately really hoping to get a chance to kind of see where he's at, but he will not be starting on Sunday. So that's a little breaking news that you can only find here in our Locked On Wild postcast, is that Kaapo Kähkönen will not be in net for the San Jose Sharks on Sunday. So we got that going for us. And yeah, that'll be something. Just trying to get caught up here. See, I knew that this was going to become a new thing when Dan and I, and by the way, I'm glad everybody enjoyed Dan Bradley's debut on Locked On Wild. I sent him a message today. He will be back. Dan will be back. He'll become a regular contributor. He'll be a regular contributor not only the rest of the season, but also he'll be in the off season. We'll get him back on the show for sure. I knew when we said Dr. Topes that was going to be a thing. Not healthy, but if I don't sleep and wake up much happier when the Wild are doing well. I do too. I hope I know it's easy to get caught up in frustrating performances and losses to where I've had, I can't even tell you how many people who, and we've seen it in the comments here where people will say, hey, the Wild lost tonight. You must feel great. You must be jumping up and down, celebrating in your living room at the fact that the Wild lost another game and now you get to rip them into oblivion. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy having to put players on blast. And again, it's never anything personal against the players. But I watch the games. We all watch the games. We see what happens on the ice. And I want to see this team get to the point in which we are all celebrating on 7th Avenue with the Stanley Cup in hand. We all want to get there. I will not rest until we do. And even if they, I don't want to turn this into a, like, if they win the Stanley Cup, I'm going to ride off into the sunset. I will not rest as host of this show until the Minnesota Wild hoist the Stanley Cup. And to be honest, I'll probably continue to do it even if they do. But just want this team to do well. I want us to have fun watching. 2021, 2022 was amazing. Amazingly fun. How much fun did we have with that season? 53 wins. They scored 300 goals. Just ran teams out of the XL Energy Center. I want to get back to that. I want to get back to Game 3 of the postseason against the Dallas Stars, where they just ran the Stars out of the building. I love those nights. I love getting cocky to the point that you believe that you can duke it out with anybody in the league. And there have been moments this year. There have been exciting wins this year, taking down the Boston Bruins in overtime. Kirill Kaprizov is back. The I'm back game. There have been fun moments, but it's just like every one of these games that we have, like tonight, it just, that just is the other end of the coin. And so that's where I'm at with this. Like, I just have always been somebody that just tries to keep it real. And Hoptics, like, again, I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on you here. I'm using you as a good way to do a little back and forth banter. I love the fact that you are trying. I love the fact that you're keeping the optimistic frame of mind on this season. I love that. I'm glad that you're listening to this show and trying to hold out hope for the rest of this season. I want there to be other sides of the coin. You know, as I talked about, Zach is one who is holding out the optimism too. Like, I don't enjoy being negative. Like, I just am trying to keep things real. And Hoptics, if it happens, you're going to get your due. you're going to get your due for sure. What is the deal with Danila Yurov? That's a great question, Freddie, because if you ask Twitter, Yurov has already signed his extension with the KHL for either 1 year or 3. If you ask Michael Russo, there has not been a deal signed. There's a deal on the table, but a deal has not yet been signed by Danila Yurov with his KHL team. And this is probably my biggest point of confusion with the KHL and how this all works, is it's just kind of a cloud of mystery. And so I don't know who to believe, because Michael Russo's pretty plugged in. He said in the article in which he talked about Yurov that he texted Yurov directly. But then if you have Yurov go on a TV show and say that he signed a deal, like, does that not? I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. But I think it seems like things are probably trending towards him spending one more season in the KHL to get his bag, because he can get more money in the KHL than he can in the AHL. So give him one more opportunity to earn that bag, and and then come over here. I'm laughing because I am just now getting caught up to the run of Merrill comments here. John Merrill ran over my cat. Then this follow-up, not Mr. Mittens. Merrill traded Capri's. This is just like, this just continues to be a if it's not Dr. Topes, it's trade Capri's or it's John Merrill as the biggest bits of this season. Freddie, for Liam Ugrin, that one is a little more. I think Liam Ugrin is probably at least one season away from making it over here. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that. But what I will do is I will dig in and try to find some more info on where things are at. I'll do some looking into this. Appreciate you bringing it up. I'll see what I can find out. I'll see what I can find out. Good Lord. Can't even put full sentences together. Then again, it is 12:30. I can name 10 prospects better than our bottom 6. There are at least 10. There are at least 10 of them. Yurov, Kaprizov, and Huznadinov, call them the creme line. Well done. Outstanding work, Sam. This is fantastic. Like, this might be the comment of the night. Denny, I'll give Denny the comment of the night, but this is definitely second. So I think at that, I mean, it's 12:35 right now. I think we have had a joyous amount of conversation. This is the great takeaway from tonight's show, is that this wasn't a show. This is a conversation. And so I'll let Hoptics play us out. Positive vibes in the universe create positive results on the ice. The collective optimism can propel our team to go on a winning streak. You just got to believe, like the Christmas spirit. I love Christmas. And so funnel in that positivity. And it's down to the next game for this team. And so go beat the Blues. Go beat the Blues and go from there. So, oh my God, the Merrill comments are out of control in the stream tonight. Everybody, all of you loyal listeners get it. All of you everydayers and everybody that this is the fun thing about this too. We've got new audience members like Ren, and he just has hopped right into the Merrill bit. This is just great. Everybody's starting to go to bed too. Denny, Godspeed to you for Saturday morning. Let them know what's up. For Fanline, we'll be listening in, and we look forward to hearing how things go. Folks, tonight was a conversation. I love the fact that we just had a conversation in here, and we heard both sides of the aisle. We heard both arguments, for and against. That's all I want, is an opportunity for us all to come together and to just hang out. And we did that here tonight. And so on that note, I think we're going to call it a night. Stand by, Denny. We're finalizing some things for Sunday. We're going to go. Sunday will be more town hall, working on ironing out the guests. Been absolutely swamped this week again, but we'll have the format more in what we were looking for the Sunday show. Working on the guest. I'll keep you posted, but we'll definitely be on at noon, and it'll be more of the town hall feel for Sunday's show. So I'll have more details as I can, but again, trying to survive this stretch of work and keep my sanity. But we'll keep things real here throughout the rest of the season. So appreciate everybody hopping on, and thank you as always for joining our Locked On Wild postcasts. And we'll have one for you after Saturday's game against the St. Louis Blues. We'll have our live show on Sunday, and then we'll have you covered for Sunday's game too. So busy ends to the week for tonight for the Minnesota Wild, for Locked On Wild. And appreciate everybody for hopping in here tonight. Make sure to hit the like button before you head out for the night, and make sure to subscribe. Those new listeners that hopped in here tonight, make sure you subscribe before you head out, so you don't miss out on any new content throughout the rest of the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.